Hello, it's a great honor and pleasure to interview Mr. Hak Cheol Shin, Chief Executive Officer of LG Chem. My name is Tom Byrne, and I'm the President and CEO of the Korea Society, a nonprofit organization founded in 1957 in New York City. Our mission is to promote awareness, understanding, and cooperation between the people of Korea and America. This is the third installment in the Korea Society's President's Interview Series, which we began earlier this year. Today's conversation is being recorded in Seoul at LG Chem's Twin Tower headquarters in Yeouido. Mr. Shin became LG Chem's Chief Executive Officer in January 2019. Before that, Mr. Shin had a long career at 3M Corporation, 33 years, rising up through the ranks to Vice Chair and Executive Vice President. And before that at Pungsan Corporation. Mr. Shin was educated at Seoul National University, where he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering. Well, CEO Shin, we'll start off with, I'd like to find out something about your career. So you've had this extensive career starting out from 3M Korea and serving as the Vice Chair and Chief Executive Officer at 3M in the US. Could you share with us some of the highlights from your professional career so far? I'm sure you'll have many more highlights ahead of you. And who or what influenced your career trajectory? Also, before embarking on your professional career, I believe the Pungsan Corporation. Why did you choose to study mechanical engineering? And other questions, it's a lot there, but if you could start with your professional career, please.
Thanks, Tom, and
Sure.
thank you, Korea Society, for giving me this opportunity. It's quite an honor to be able to be featured by this special interview, so thank you, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the fact that I'm being interviewed by prestigious Korea Society and Tom, you could mean the highlight of my career, I guess, among many other things, I guess. But
You're too kind.
But I've been in business for over 35 years. So
Mm-hmm.
most of those times, I was working for 3M
Mm-hmm.
in the United States. But I actually did not join 3M in the United States. I started my career, 3M career, in Korea. At that time, 3M Korea was a small branch operation of 3M US. In fact, we only had less than 100 people at that time. And I'm not quite sure what I was getting into. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, one of my friends called me up and said, well, this is a good place to be. It's a very innovative company and you better come. So among many other things in our lives, life doesn't happen as per careful planning. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it just happens.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I think my joining 3M in Korea as far as branch operation was one of those kind of a serendipitous event as opposed to be planned life career or something like that. But anyway, after 31 years in 3M,
Mm-hmm.
the guy coming from kind of a small country called South Korea, a very small subsidiary, was not even official subsidiary.
Mm-hmm.
That time, 3M Korea was actually a branch of 3M's Far East limited operation headquartered out of Hong Kong.
Mm.
So 3M Korea was not even an official branch operation at that time. After 31 years, I became vice chairman of 3M, which is quite an honor, I guess, among many other things. And
Right.
then
Mm-hmm.
subsequently, I was called by LG Group. I was very honored and very
Mm-hmm.
humbled to lead one of the great companies in Korea and in the world. It was LG Chemical. I guess these two combined, I consider myself very lucky,
Mm-hmm.
very fortunate, being at the right time, at the right
Mm-hmm.
place also plays a
Right.
role, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can call it highlight of my career. So far, it way exceeded my expectations. So I'm humbled every day.
Mm-hmm.
What motivated my career, or what influenced my career? Probably many things. I think I met very good people at the inflection point of my career. You can call them mentor, you can call them your teacher, your friends, but the fact that I met very, very good leaders, great leaders along the lines of giving me that mentoring opportunity in 3M and outside 3M as well. And the fact that I was very interested in probing people and what motivates them and what makes them tick. I was always curious about people, what they think and what they like and what they dislike. So the fact that I met good people is one of them, but I also took personal interest in creating that relationship with the people that I met, because it kind of goes in both ways, I guess,
sure.
the learning part. So I think my intense interest in people and how they think and what they think clearly helped my career in the right direction, I think. Probably the third thing, I guess, is my passion for learning. I always like to learn. I have a passion for learning since high school, college days. Not only my major in mechanical engineering, but something other than my major. I was very interested in foreign countries and foreign languages, especially English. So I read a lot in my high school days and universities. And I think that really helped me shape out my mentality, my thinking, the fundamentals of me as a human being. So I have a lot of things to say about passion for learning and making it a lifetime habit and what that means to you and your career. So I guess I attribute my current position to a lot to that passion for learning. If there's probably the last thing I want to mention is the clear sense of direction. What's right, what's wrong, okay? A gray area, probably not a good place to go, okay? I think I learned it in my early upbringings from my father. He was very strict. He was not educated in college. In fact, he was a farmer, not a very rich farmer, by the way. But I think he gave me that keen sense of responsibility and sense of direction and what's right, what's wrong when I was very, very young. So I think all of those combined, plus luck and time. I think you got to be at the right place at the right time. And I was lucky and I was very fortunate to be able to achieve what I achieved.
Right. Well, you make your own luck, right?
It is true. I think you make your own luck in a certain way.
Right, right. So, I mean, that's fascinating. You know, I think it's very rare for a chief executive officer who really has a passion for understanding people and learning. So I think you stand out there. Going back, why did you choose mechanical engineering? I mean, instead of like law or something else?
Again, I liked physics, mathematics, in addition to my passion for literature and foreign language.
Right.
So at that time in Seoul National University, one of the most popular departments, which almost guarantees employment,
Yes.
okay, was mechanical engineering, in addition to electronics and chemical. So like many, early 20-something kids who did not come from very rich background, I was thinking about what I eventually become after graduation.
Sure.
So I think that was the main motivation, kind of employment and my future and things of that nature.
One last follow-up question. You said you have a love for literature. I assume that's more than just reading about engineering and science. What favorite genres do you like to read? Yeah,
so I in fact, one of the early novels that really shaped my thinking about life was Somerset Maugham, the English author who I really respect, and I read a lot of his books. And one of his novels is the short novel called The Moon and the Sixpence, I think, which is well known. It speaks about a painter, a well-known painter, who eventually went to Tahiti and died there. And he was a very famous and affluent banker in London, with a wife and a kid and great family. And there's no reason for him to overnight fled to Paris and kind of disappeared for several months until this I think author or Avatar went to Paris and found him, and I guess in a small bar or something, and the question was why? Okay, I mean you're a very affluent banker and nothing to worry, and why did you flee? Why did you flee to Paris? And he said, I want to paint. I always know that's what I need to do, and even though I was famous banker and affluent banker, there's something deep in my mind that I had to accomplish that before too long. And then story goes on and on, and we all know it's about Paul Gauguin. But this passion for lifetime accomplishment,
Right.
And where did it come from, and what shapes people's mind to be so obsessed in one area that they can give up the entire life and pursue that
Right.
at the age of mid-40. I mean, he was 40-something at the time. So I think something like that gave me a lot to think about when I was a high school kid. So I think those readings that I took on during my spare time, okay. In Korea, it's very tight when it comes to college exams, so you really have to put your best foot forward to study. But I found some spare time and read those books, and those books that I read that time, like Charles Dickens' novel and all that, really shaped my psyche, my ethics going forward, and I'm grateful for that. I'm very grateful for my passion for reading at the time.
Yes. I'm just curious about your childhood. You said your father was a farmer. Did you have to help out on the farm before you?
Oh, absolutely. I helped my father a lot. Grazing the cow and carrying stuff here and there, and planting the rice in the paddies and harvesting manually, by the way, and all that. That time, everybody was worrying about where the next meal is coming from. This was 4 years after Korean War ended. So there's no TV, there's no car at all, and everybody was kind of in the same shape.
Right.
So we all had to go through that. And I guess the fact that it was not very a hygiene type environment. I don't know what I was eating, okay. Sometimes I go back and forth to elementary school, and in between there's some little thing in our paddies, and our school kid got together and put some like the wheats, the raw wheats, and burnt it and scrape it out and by hands and eat it. I guess I never had any digestion problem, okay. I think the fact that you grew up in a very tough environment somehow makes you stronger, in a sense, versus you were grown up in like a greenhouse type environment, very clean and everything clean about what you eat. People tend to develop more stomach ache after they grew up. I don't know if that makes sense, but my personal experience is that I think endurance, persistence in my early years clearly was not a disadvantage for me. I think it became a great blessing in terms of fortitude, in terms of your instinct for survival, so to speak. So I'm grateful for my early ages.
Yeah. I mean, what I understand, at least in the U.S., the trend is that young kids do not go out and work, when they're in high school, and they maybe they just study or they do something else. But going out and doing work and having to perform and meet other people's expectations is a formative experience. But what you had on the farm would put any American kid to shame, even those who are in industrials.
Well, I
That must
guess
have been
same is
very rough.
true nowadays in Korea,
Yeah.
but this was more like 55 years ago,
Sure,
right? So
yeah.
time has changed, not only in the United States, but here in Korea as well.
Yeah,
One of the
yeah.
things that we are talking about here is what young kids are thinking
Yeah.
and how frankly, how spoiled they are. Some ways their responsibility, maybe some comes from their parents, the way they bring up their people.
Right.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. So if we can move on to another subject. So you've worked in, now you're in a Korean company, LG Chem, and you worked in an American company. What's the difference in organizational cultures? Are they very much apart, or nowadays are they moving kind of closer together? Are they parallel lines or intersecting lines? And when we talk about ESG, maybe we can add more.
Yeah, when it comes to work, I see less and less differences. In fact, I see more and more commonalities
Right.
when it comes to work. Like how would you increase your productivity? How to innovate? How to put AI to work in real production environment. I mean, those type of work-related topics are the same, whether it's UK or United States or Korea.
Right.
However, the people and the organization, how they react, how they interact, how decisions are made, the subtlety that surrounds people and organization, and sensitivity that operates the kind of an invisible part of organizational culture, I guess is very different. It's Korean, but it's more than Korean. It's LG too. So there is a national culture. There is a LG culture. We know it's pretty dangerous to stereotype certain organization, including country and the company, but there's a certain element of that as well. So I'm less focused on work-related culture. When you talk about, okay, let's spend more time on customers, I don't think anybody can argue whether you are Korean or British or American. So that's not an issue. And that's how I operate. I was running 3M's international operations for almost 8 years. I was responsible for all countries except the United States, where I was located. So I don't know how that works, but I think my mantra in managing very complex environment, culturally and otherwise, is to focus on common goals. Let's grow the business. Let's be more innovative. Let's make company more customer focused. Nobody argues about it. Go to Morocco, nobody argues about it. I think that's one myth, that's maybe one misconception going around. Maybe there's cultural sensitivity that maybe we should not even ask for spending more time with the customer or charge your head with the productivity or spend money on things like innovation. I think that's a very wrong concept in my view. I think those are all same in my view, and I think whoever is watching this session can be assured. And I'm telling out of my own experience, of 30 years of experience in running global business. Go to anywhere and set the right objective, whether it's business, whether it's customer, whether it's growth, whether it's innovation, and ask people to participate, and they will gladly participate. I think what is subtle is something surrounding that whole objective, is how you communicate that objective, how you get people's heart and mind around those objectives. I think those are different. The way you do that is quite different in Japan versus Korea and the United States for that matter. So I think the one of many things to learn is the tactic. How would you differentiate doing it in Korea versus in Japan, but not only in Korea in general, but how to do it in LG versus some other companies. So you really have to understand what's going through your people's mind and how they think. And then you can develop your own communication style to convey the message. Because at the end of the day, the objective is to unite people around the common message. If you can get people's hearts and minds, they can move the mountains. So the issue that many great business people stumble on is underestimation of the subtle, in many cases invisible differences. Well, this works in the United States. Well, it does, but it may not work just like that in Korea. Or it may work in one company, but maybe not in others. So that subtlety and sensitivity, how to grasp it, how to internalize it, how to use it, really separates good leaders from others, in my view. Because everybody can talk about how to grow the business and set the right objectives. But the key is how to convey that and create that passion around the objective.
I met you about 3 years ago, I recall, in New York City. You were on a recruitment trip. Were you recruiting graduates from top-notch universities in the U.S.? How big is this in your hiring, and does this present challenges or opportunities bringing in those who are educated outside of Korea into LG? Size-wise,
it's not a lot of people that we are aiming at. I think it's to the tune of maybe 50 people annually, but they are very highly intelligent people. Most of them, almost all of them, are PhD degrees, and we select a specific areas that we want to bring talent from outside. For example, artificial intelligence, for example. So it is a targeted recruiting as opposed to general recruiting, and we certainly do that not because we have an issue in recruiting talent, but kind of a targeted recruitment outside Korea is what you saw me doing in New York, and we are doing the same thing in Japan and Frankfurt, also in China. But the fact that CEO and C-suite members go out there and interview people and trying to bring them in sends the clear message how much we value the people and the recruiting process. So it's one way to declare that LG is all about valuing people, and will go anywhere to entice and recruit good people. So I think we get some good success from that type of recruiting methodology.
Right. Okay, if we can move on to another area, and that is LG Group. So can you give us a brief overview of the history of LG Group and its lines of business? I know from reading your 2020 annual report that you have 68 subsidiaries and workforce of 258,000 and sales of 144 billion. But to get to that, how are you organized?
I think the
at the group level?
Statistics that you mentioned is about the conglomerate LG Group, which consists of many companies. In fact, you mentioned 63, 68 by the way, is really grouped into electronics group, chemical group, telecommunication group, and so forth. So I think the three big groups, in each group there are about 10 to 12 companies. LG Chem represents the chemical group of LG Group. So we are one of many companies within LG Group. We happen to be the company that has the biggest market cap, and traditionally LG Chem has been the kind of a mother company of the group. In fact, the group was founded based upon LG Chemical, back in 1947. We started with our cosmetics business and evolved into current LG Chem. So I can talk about LG Group, but I think more meaningfully, I can talk about LG Chemical, which I'm leading right now.
Right.
LG Chem is about $35 billion global diversified company that until recently it consists of a petrochemical group, which is our largest business, and advanced materials group, and the life science group. And on top of that, we used to have a battery business, which about a year ago was split off into a standalone company by the name of LG Energy Solution. But LG Chem owns them outright 100%, so you can loosely include LG Chem in the wider context of LG Energy Solution in the wider context of LG Chem. So we have those four business groups that was represented by LG Chem. This year, we were ranked fifth largest chemical company in the world. And last year, we were ranked number 4 in brand value among many global chemical companies. So we are one of the most well-known chemical companies in the world. We took great pride in that. We have about 22,000 employees in LG Chem proper, in addition to about 25,000 employees in LG Energy Solutions. Put them all together, we're talking about 47,000 people, and we are growing company. Last year we grew about 20%. In fact, the fact that LG Energy Solution is growing at a very rapid pace, as you know, supported by our advanced material business and life science business, which is also growing rapidly. In fact, we had the best years the last 2 years in the midst of pandemic. So we are very proud of our accomplishment as a company.
I think I read that out of the top 10 chemical companies globally, you were the only one that increased sales and profits?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Financial Times selected the top global company whose market value increased during pandemic. And then we were selected one of top 100 companies in the world, the big companies whose market value grew the most during pandemic. The reason we were able to do so was that back in 2020, in fact, I mean, it looks like a distant past, but this is only like 1 year and 10 months. The whole pandemic started in February of last year in earnest. We had our first management meeting after 2 weeks when the first case broke out in Korea. So we embarked on crisis management mode very early. I think that's one of the reasons why we were able to achieve that. And we thought that this might end in a short time, but this can go on for 3 years. If you look at 1928 Spanish flu, it went on for 3 years. So if that's the max, the minimum could be it can end next month. So do we have to assume it will end next month? Or do we have to assume that this could be another Spanish flu that will go on for 3 years? We decided to take it as the Spanish flu.
Right.
So we set up the plan based upon the fact that this can go on for 2 to 3 years. And this can upend the whole financial market. This can upend the whole industry. We made assumption like that when we had the first case in Korea back in February of last year. In retrospect, that's one of the best decisions that we have made. So when you have that type of crisis in front of you, in your hands, what do? We quickly declared 3 crisis management principles to be ready for the scenario. So prepare for the worst and hope for the best,
for the
was
best.
our strategy. It consists of three parts. Number one, control what you can control was our first strategy. We still spend money, we still hire people, that's all under your control.
Right.
We still take on debt, that's under your control. We have so much inventory, we can bring it down, there are so many things under your control that you can control. So that's our first thing, is control what we can control. Number two is don't mortgage your future. What do I mean by there was a second principle under our crisis management mode is that one of many things that people make mistake during tough time, crisis time, is that they go left to right. They go from hot tub to refrigerator. In fact, they throw away most of investment geared for the future. We decided not to do that. So keep the investment that's geared toward future, keep it intact, was our second mantra under the heading of don't mortgage your future. The third one was preserve cash. It was so evident that liquidity is going to be a big problem if situation becomes like Spanish flu. So those three principles really worked. In 1 year, we got more than $1.4 billion worth of productivity gain out of our first principle, which is control what you can control. We cut down about $900 million of inventory under the heading of preserve cash. So I think those all combined, plus the fact that we garnered all employees' energy into those three principles, I think the power of that has been enormous. I think that's the reason. I think a little bit of luck too, I guess, led us to be one of the most successful companies in overcoming the pandemic. I think it's still going on. We know that. It's way too early to declare victory. We know that. I know that. Now they're talking about Omicron, so I'm fully aware of that. But the way that our people got together on the very clear and very simple principle and acted on it was something that was remarkable to me. And I'm so grateful for what they have done for the company.
Yeah. Well, it really is exceptional performance, your crisis management, because, as I said before, you were the only one of the top 10 global chemical companies to have such a positive performance. You operate in international markets. Did you use this philosophy in all your markets? The U.S. is a big market for you.
U.S. is a very big market for us, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now about 45% of our business is coming from outside of Korea. If you include the energy solution, that number will be about 65.
Right.
So we are truly a global company. In fact, we think we are way underpenetrated in the U.S. market and European market,
Right.
As well as Southeast Asia and Indian market. Traditionally, we have been strong in China. We have a long history of having a good presence in China. If you just talk about LG Chemical, about 1/3 of our business is coming from China. So we have a good presence in China. So we are really focusing on United States, Americas instead of United States, including Canada and South America. So Americas and Europe are two areas that we are really focusing on. So we are investing more in terms of localization, R&D. We are opening up our R&D center in Michigan for petrochemical. Just one example, and opening up R&D center in Frankfurt. So we are investing heavily in R&D and manufacturing in Europe and Americas. I think what's also driving this kind of a regional self-sufficiency is the fact that if you look at the economic nationalism that's spreading through the whole world, you better be self-sufficient in the region. And then on top of that, if you look at the ESG or carbon reduction scenario and all kinds of regulations coming from the countries and the regions, what we are trying to do is to create regional center of R&D and manufacturing
Right.
in each part of the big regions of the world, namely Europe, Middle East, Africa, EMEA, number one, and Americas, number two, and Asia. So we are in the middle of making it happen.
Right, right. Well, I hope the pandemic only lasts 3 years. It seems never ending with the cleverness of this virus to mutate. But one of the problems with the COVID era has been supply chain shortages.
Yeah.
I mean, I just on a very personal level, we came home. I was up in the Adirondack Mountains several weeks ago, and I bought some maple syrup, and the seller in the small farmer's market apologized because she had to use a generic plastic container rather than her customized plastic container. She said, we can't get any more supply for another year. But at any rate, how has this affected your operations? I mean, you're still profitable, your sales are growing. How are you dealing with supply chain shortages and supply chain resiliency?
Right. I think it's a big topic that we have been dealing with for more than a year now. It's twofold. Number one, logistics. If you look at the ships and containers and the bulk, first of all, the price has gone up 4 times, 3.5 to 4 times, unheard of. And even at that price, you cannot find containers and bulk. And if you are lucky enough to find container, then you cannot ship it because there's lack of cargo ships. So I think the whole disruption in transportation is one issue that we are dealing with. At the same time, the other issue that we are dealing with is the disruption in supply chain as a result of long pandemic period. Many small companies making small part in the supply chain either went bankrupt or they decided to go out of business because they cannot find people, whatever reason. Like we saw in automotive manufacturing, if you don't have just one small, in that case, maybe semiconductor, but there may be some others. You cannot make cars, you cannot make airplanes. So the disruption in supply chain caused by pandemic, exacerbated by the fact that transportation is a big issue, puts many companies in a very difficult situation, especially for companies who are export-driven like LG Chem. We ship batteries over from China to Korea, from Korea to US, and we ship resins over to Europe and all that. So it is an issue. I don't think there is any easy and quick solution to this. We are doing the best we can to address those two issues at the same time. The transportation issue is something that does not have any immediate solution. We do the best we can to secure the cargo ships and containers. And if that doesn't work, we ship it over through air freight. I mean, the best you can is what we are doing. But the supply chain disruption, your raw materials, your parts coming from one country or the other, I think you can have control over that by better planning, dual source of supply as opposed to single source of supply. So we mobilize our entire team now for more than 6 months to make sure that we plan on shortage in key raw materials and parts. And you can actually map it out in a very systematic way. Where it's coming from? Do we have any alternatives? What's the potential danger of disruption in one ingredient versus the other? So you can really put it in very analytical methodology. And we have done that. And we are putting that to action at the moment. The way I look at it is that it's not LG Chem problem, it's global problem. If it hits LG Chem, it hits our competitors as well. So I don't think there's anybody who just gets out easy. So it's not just about the surroundings of environment that's imposed upon us. It is about who reacts better than others. In fact, recently we declared 2022 as the year of the customer. under that heading, we're having meeting with more customers and more intensely in more strategic way. And when things come out, okay, we have one of this part short, we basically gang up on that problem and get it resolved, ideally within 24 months, but if not 1 week. So I think it's about how you react to the situation, because still, universe is a big place. I mean, the globe is a big place.
Sure.
If you lack one ingredient somewhere, you can find it. If you look hard enough, you can find it. So in fact, I think you can actually prosper in chaos. And right now in supply chain, it is a chaos that has no insight, has no easy end in sight. So our strategy is to do the best we can, and actually doing it much better than competition, and creating customer satisfaction, and not only customer satisfaction, but moving customers with our service during this time. To me, every crisis is an opportunity. We talk about carbon or decarbonization, it's a huge opportunity.
Right.
You talk about current logistics problem, it's a huge opportunity to differentiate yourself from your competition because they are on the same constraints, right? So it's not about lamenting about the external environment, it's about how you overcome it in a way that actually you can use this as an opportunity.
Right.
I mean, if you always have that attitude, kind of a fear nothing, and things can happen, and it's not about things happen, it's about how you react and how you adapt to the situation is more important. I mean, things always happen. I mean, there's only one Saturday morning, but there are Monday mornings and Tuesday mornings and Wednesday mornings, right? So I'm quite used to that. Always prepare for the worst and then hope for the best. If it works fair, for me for many years.
I think that's a Mel Brooks line, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. What about the companies, the other petrochemical companies, chemical companies that are highly vertically integrated? Are they resistant to these supply chain shortages, or?
I think everybody's trying their
Everyone's
best,
trying their
right?
best,
So
right.
I think everybody's trying to do the right thing.
Right.
And we are really focusing on our end customers who are using our products.
Right.
We are really stepping up our effort on engaging with our end customers in a way that that we understand their customers, so customers. So I cannot speak for other companies, but
Right.
I guess everybody is giving a fair try is what I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Getting back, the Korea Society is based in the U.S. Could you tell us a little more about your investments in the U.S.?
Right. So as you know, we recently announced Energy Solutions, by the
Right.
way, the big investment in the United States, one in Ohio and the second plant in Tennessee.
Right.
To the tune of more than $5 billion of investment. LG Chemical in our petrochemical side, we are also investing in our R&D facility. We are also looking at compounding facility of our ABS resin in northern part of the United States. So we are really stepping up our investment, not only in battery, but in our petrochemical and life sciences. 2 years ago, we opened Innovation Center in Massachusetts, in Boston, to bring our new drugs into commercialization. So LG Chem is investing heavily in America.
That's your life sciences company?
It is our life science company.
Right. Yeah, Boston's one of the centers for.
Yes, Boston is our innovation center.
Right. Right. And it's your only innovation center outside of Korea, is that right?
Right now, that's correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So if we can turn to another hot topic, but on a more positive note than the supply chain, of the ESG. I see that ESG issued green bonds this year, earmarked to raise funds for climate and environmental projects worth $1 billion. And LG Chem was the first chemical manufacturer to issue green bonds, I think, in Korea back in 2019. So what is your ESG strategy, and I think you, in one of your press releases, you said that this will be revolutionary for LG.
Yeah, I think in fact that's the first thing that I started working on when I arrived in LG Chem is about sustainability. That time, sustainability was more common term than ESG. This is well before carbon became a huge issue on a global basis. This was back in 2019. So we worked on this issue, carbon issue, for more than 6 months, and then declared 2050 carbon neutral growth plan. First company in our industry in Korea, and first one of the first in chemical industry, even on a global scale as well. Our plan was to hold on to 2019 level, our carbon emission level until 2050. Now a lot of people are and a lot of companies are announcing that, but that time we put up a detailed action plan to actually make it happen. And then later on, we included some social element and also governance element, and expanded it into what we now know ESG.
Right.
So we have a clear roadmap to reduce our carbon dioxide to 2019 level now. We are in the process of upping the ante in terms of raising the bar. Instead of 2050 carbon neutrality, we are in the process of studying to raise the bar to net zero emission by 2050. In other words, 0 grams of CO2 is coming from our global operation by 2050. What that means is that we have to move up the timeline for carbon neutrality to 2030. So achieve carbon neutral status in 2030 and achieve net zero status by 2050. That means we have to reduce about 30 million metric tons of carbon dioxide every year. That's a daunting task.
Sounds like a lot.
30 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. Put that into perspective. That's about the amount of carbon dioxide emitted by 12.5 million internal combustion vehicles annually. So the registered number of vehicles in Korea is about 28 million. So we're talking about over half of Korean car population emitting carbon dioxide every year, and that's the amount of carbon that we are trying to reduce. So we are deploying all the known tactics and even unknown tactics, like direct reduction, indirect reduction, and compensatory reduction, including renewable energy 100 drive. In other words, by 2050, we'll have entire global operation running on renewable energy only. Zero landfill, in other words, in our global operation, we will not bury 1 gram of industrial waste underground.
Right.
There's our zero landfill policy, and many other things. So we have mapped out all the plans to get that carbon reduction plan. But at the same time, if you just keep investing without something that's coming in return, you might end up maybe saving the planet and going out of business. I think that's what a lot of companies are agonizing over. They know they have to invest, they know they have to achieve carbon-free status, but financial burden is so prohibitive, doesn't quite know what to do. So from the get-go, we studied this movement as a parallel path. One is what I just described. Okay, making a preemptive investment in reducing carbon. It may require some upfront investment, especially in year 1 to year 4, but eventually when the carbon price goes up, and when there's a carbon tax coming up, we'll get the return. That's our one element of directly reducing our carbon to comply with our 2050 carbon net zero objective. Now, number 2 is, can we turn this new landscape into opportunity, business opportunity? The answer is resounding yes. If you look at the current landscape where green consumers are everywhere, even B2B companies are willing to pay more for things like recycled plastics. And the fact that bio-based plastics, the plastics that come from corns or sugar cane, can ask for more price. These are the biodegradable plastics, the plastics that can decompose in 3.5 to 5 months under the landfill condition, compared to the polypropylene and polyester coming from crude oil that takes 250 years to decompose. So think about those as a new opportunity: bio-based plastics, biodegradables, and recycled materials. So we are setting up a huge R&D and investment project along the lines of turning this new landscape into opportunity. I was in Chicago 3 months ago to declare a major joint venture with an American company by the name of Archer Daniels Midlands.
Right.
They are the giant in cereal business. So they have plant in Illinois, the corn processing plant, and we will jointly invest our capital to create lactic acid from the corns, which will eventually turn into biodegradable plastic. So the element of looking at ESG or sustainability in two folds: one, compliance; the other one is to turning that into opportunity and map it out in the context of 5, 10, 30 years down the road, gave us the good confidence that actually we can make this happen.
You've already moved into the commercialization stage
Absolutely.
of the plastics
we are selling our
recycling.
PCR ABS and PCR POEs, and we invested in our PBAT plant in Daesan and many others, by the way.
Right. I just want to make one comment here. In the area of transportation, making sustainable transportation, this past October at the Korea Society, we honored the joint venture between LG Energy Solutions and GM to develop electronic batteries for electronic vehicles in Ohio and Tennessee. So that reflects the new type of cooperation and partnership between the U.S. and Korea, commercial partnership. I think that's very important. I want to get to the last question we have. It has to do with my career at Moody's, but I just wanted to mention that I noticed that in the middle of the pandemic, Moody's has put your investment grade bond rating on a positive outlook, so congratulations on that. My final question is that what I recall from my days at Moody's when I traveled with the corporate analyst, the final question we'd ask the chief financial officer or the senior executive was, what keeps you up at night? So as you strive to advance LG Chem and make this revolutionary transformation and sustainability, is there anything that keeps you up at night?
I guess disruption and disruptive technology that can displace the existing business in a hurry. Overnight is what, in fact, every CEO's nightmare. And chemical industry is a little difficult to innovate overnight. However, I rather want to be in paranoia status than being so complacent and getting hit by a truck later on. So somebody in the garage who can out-innovate us, two people in the garage. I mean, those guys are the ones that keeps me up at night. And I think we rather want to be the two people in the garage as opposed to be somebody else. How can you out-innovate? Not for the sake of our own company, but for our stakeholders, our customers, our shareholders, our employees, and the society that we operate. If we can keep creating value for these stakeholders by innovating and innovating, I think we will remain not only as a good company, but premier company in the world.
Yeah, I recall Andy Grove. I think he was the founder of Intel. He said the key to his success, he was paranoid. Well, thank you very much, HC, for spending all this time and sharing your insights and knowledge. and passion for your work.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, before I close, I just want to extend my special appreciation and thanks to the Korea Society, what the organization has done for the relationship and partnership between Korea and the United States, and in many, many ways, and I'm so grateful and so appreciative of what Korea Society has done and is still doing for the benefit of two great nations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.